Hello and welcome. At this very minute, yet another person is becoming a victim of human trafficking. Women who account for more than 80% of trafficking victims are particularly at risk to become involved in the sex trade epidemic. A promise of a good job in another country, a false marriage proposal, being sold by parents, husbands, boyfriends, or even being kidnapped by traffickers is how many women and girls find themselves forced into sexual slavery. From there, it's a downward spiral as they stand on street corners, work in brothels and strip clubs, and are often raped, beaten, starved and drugged into silence. They're usually just trying to make enough money to survive. Sometimes they have children and dependents back home or a seemingly endless debt to repay. Today we examine the state of the flesh trade around the world through the eyes of three people who've seen it firsthand in some way. Don't forget, we take your calls on this show and you can reach us at the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Well, joining me from San Francisco is Norma Hotlink, the founder of the SAGE project, Standing Against Global Exploitation. From Los Angeles we have Natasha. That's not her real name. She's chosen to keep her identity secret. She was a victim of human trafficking herself. And joining me here in Washington, D.C., producer and best-selling writer Michael Wiener, who just attended the first ever Vienna Forum to fight human trafficking. He's also author of the book Shattered Dreams, Broken Promises, The Cost of Coming to America. Welcome all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael Wiener, I'd like to start with you and ask you about your book, which is a sample of 23 personal stories from more than 200 women you interviewed. And you're not focused specifically on the sex trade, but you sort of call it the cost of coming to America. And I wonder, when you listen to those 200 stories, how hard was it to whittle it down and get these 23 stories? But I'm sure you heard some fascinating stuff.
Well, there were 24 stories, and they were basically all encompassed every one of the stories I heard. They were an amalgamation of everybody's stories, and they were, most of them, heartbreaking, and you got to the truth when you heard the same thing over and over again. You knew what was true and what wasn't as time passed.
I've got to ask you an email we got from a viewer. We try and get our viewers' questions into this show, and this came in from Damascus in Syria. And Lubna Sharaf in Damascus says, I don't really understand the definition of human trafficking. I understand it doesn't necessarily have to be something forced on that person, but doesn't that make it more difficult to prosecute? And I wonder, you were at the UN conference in Vienna against human trafficking. Was there any kind of mention of this or the solution on how to go forward in certainly prosecuting people who are involved?
Well, it is more enticement and ignorance. And if you remember the Robert Redford Demi Moore movie, right, where the question was, would you sleep with me for $1 million? To take a poor girl in Siberia who is working for $10 a week if she is lucky and can get a job, and then is working perhaps as a prostitute for $10 for each guy she sees at most, and all of a sudden she gets someone offering her to come to America and make $100,000 to $300,000 a year. She's told the enticement is so great that so many girls who are waitresses, who are trying to support their family, medicines, just stay alive, do this, and they're enticed into it, and they think that it's a lot easier and it's a lot less harmful to them than it is. Instead of, it's a path that most of them don't come out the other end.
Well, let me bring in our guest from Los Angeles, Natasha, as we're calling her. Natasha, give us an idea of how you were lured into this trap and were effectively trafficked. And just give us a brief summary of your story. What happened to you?
Well, the first time I came to United States was in 1997 when I was 21 years old. And basically what happened, I always dream about the United States as a little girl. So when I finished my school, I found the ad in a newspaper saying that I can get a really good job in United States, making like $5,000 a month. So I pretty much answer. I call on the ad, and they promised me to get me a visa and bring me to United States and start making a good money. First time I flew to Atlanta, and when I met the person at the airport, They told me to take like $700 with me, that it's going to be enough for the first month. And when I met the person at the airport, he basically told me, okay, you're going to give me a $400 right now, or I'll leave you here on a spot. So
you were pretty much tricked all along, in what was happening. I have to ask you one thing. We had an email that came in from Pakistan. I wonder if you could help us with this, Natasha, answering this. Mansoor Ali in Lahore says, as globalization brings the world closer together and opens many doors for those who may not have had choices previously, it also seems to have many negative aspects, as witnessed with this issue, the issue of trafficking. How can the sex trade industry go up against something as vast and strong as globalization? And I wonder, from what you experienced, when you have people moving around the world, so easily, I guess the idea of moving to another country, the idea of going somewhere else, it sounds a lot easier than it is, yes?
Yes, I think that, well, it depends. I think depends what country you're coming from also, because I know that a lot of people from different countries can, you need a visa to get here, and if you're coming from countries that there's a war or something, you can get asylum. So that's a little bit different kind of situation also, but it's...
So it really is a difference. I guess it depends very much on the geography of where people are coming from. But
yes.
I'll get back to you in a moment, Natasha. I want to get in Norma Hotlink, who's joining us from San Francisco. And I want to, Norma, I want you to give us your story, because you've obviously managed to come through a lot and actually have even managed to set up a support group for victims. So just tell us what you went through and how you've got to where you are now.
Well, our program is much more than a support group. It's a very comprehensive, trauma-informed, client-centered mental health and substance abuse program that focuses on the individuals who have been trafficked throughout the United States. We have domestic trafficking, we have international trafficking victims that we serve both forced labor and for sexual slavery purposes. And we're the first of its kind in the world. We've been operating since 1992, and we also have a program for customers of prostitutes, because the research has shown from the First World Congress Against the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children that men who migrate to children start as adult users of adult women that are involved in prostitution and trafficking. And it also shows that men don't know, and in many cases don't care if the individual is a trafficked person. So we really focus on the demand. We have started the language of demand reduction and the whole analysis around that. And my whole history is that I was a child who was trafficked. Under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, as it's passed in the United States, I would have been considered a trafficked child. And then I experienced all the effects of that throughout my whole life, starting with depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidality, very dysfunctional relationships, 21-year heroin addiction, and I was just basically arrested over and over again. I entered into prostitution as an adult, and after trying very heroically, I think, to create a life for myself outside of the sex industry. I have a background in medicine, real estate, different things, but I ended up homeless and on the street and totally addicted until I got help.
Norm, I'll ask you more about what you do in a moment, but let me get back to Michael Vina, who's here with us. And I have to ask, in the stories you heard, and it's very poignant in the book, you say you fell in love with many of these women, and you know people who read will too, because their stories are so human. I mean, they went through so much. It's actually, it's so sad and depressing reading what a lot of these women went through. When there was a common thread, though, if there was a common thread you found in all these people you spoke to, all these women you spoke to, what was it?
That they wanted a better life. They come from the former Soviet Union, where women are treated as a commodity, where women outnumber men substantially in some cities, as much as 2 to 1 and even a little more. And it's a conveyor belt with almost, well, 75% of the women I talked to were raised by their mothers with their fathers nowhere in sight. And it's such a tough country, such a tough land. It's a country, Russia's losing 700,000 people a year who just don't want to live there anymore. It's so tough. In the big cities is one thing, but in the countryside, people cannot wait to get out. It's changing, but too slowly.
When you heard all these stories, and it's quite, even, you know, reading the stories is quite an emotional experience. How were you personally affected after going through all these stories?
It does change you. If you ever think about a strip club or dancer, they're no longer something that you would see anything but sadness in. You go in there and you know what they're thinking, and you know why they're there. They know that, you know, you're thought of is basically as scum by most of the people there, and for good reason. And it takes the veil of mystery away, and what's left is not very pretty.
Natasha, I have to ask you, if there's one single thing that could be done, what would be the most useful thing that could be done to help victims of trafficking?
Useful thing. I think that all the people they been struggling and having more problems with that should know that they can always find a help somewhere, because what happened to me when I got into the critical situation when I was here the first time, I didn't know, because the person I was abused by told me that if I'll ever go try to find a help, I'll be in a trouble. So I think that you know, they should know that there's always help, and they can always go to even their, you know, their visa not right and they're out of status or whatever problems they're going through, they can always go ask for help. They don't have to be afraid to go like to police station and file the report or something, because, you know, everyone have the right to ask for help.
So even if they're not legal in the country, or even if they think there may be some sort of problem with the authorities, they should put their safety first, is effectively what you're saying. Their conditions
yes,
first,
well, that's what this country, it's I think that's why a lot of people come here to this country, because it's a land of opportunities, and you know, it's sometimes you get into a hard situation, it's not even your fault, and I think everyone should have the right to be able to make it better.
I want to ask Norma Hotlink, tell me about your Reclaim Your Rights project, because that's very much focused on letting people know they have someone they can turn to and that they have rights, isn't it?
Right. It's a way for people to, one, understand what the issues are and what the laws are. And if you're in a situation where it is a situation of sexual slavery or forced labor, what that looks like. You know, has somebody taken away your passport? Is somebody telling you lies about the laws? Are they threatening your family? Are they holding you in isolation? And it doesn't matter that you are not legal. And you can come forward safely and speak to confidential counselors and discuss your situation and not risk deportation. And decide if you want to come forward to law enforcement and take advantage of the reparations, the remedies that are there for you. So we have teams of lawyers that work both civilly and criminally to help, as well as Department of Labor, to restore what people have lost. They have been told, many people have been told in their country of origin, you know, come to the United States, it'll cost you $30,000, so mortgage your property, mortgage your family's property, etc. And then they get here and they're held in forced situations, and so we help them get that back.
Well, I have to ask Michael Wiener here. We had an email that came in from Colorado here in the USA, and I have to put this one to you. It's from Laura Griffin, who says, I've traveled to Cambodia on business many times, and it constantly astounds me how open they are about the sex industry. Why is the government so hands-off about these occurrences? Do you think this is because sex tourism is a measurable size of the country's revenue? And sort of broadening that question a bit, to what extent is government addressing this issue?
Well, it depends what government, and it is. in Shattered Dreams, Broken Promises, you find how different governments, including ours, face it, and how we, people like Natasha, her forced labor was in a Walmart where she'd be locked in from 10 in the morning, 10 at night to 6 in the morning, 7 days a week. But other people in so many countries, it's a commodity. They're sex tours. You find them in almost every country except this country, and by making it illegal, you risk disease and you risk an underground economy and so many things, where in some more enlightened countries it's done in a way that's better for the clients, for the girls, and for the society as a whole.
If there was one thing, Michael, you think that could be done, to be effective against human trafficking, if there's one action that could be taken, what do you think it would be?
Again, it would be education, and it would be enlightenment, and it would be legalization, because now you look at some of these cases, and a girl is working as a prostitute, but she gets 20%, 25%, at most 30% of the money that's paid. There's so many people who take advantage of it, that even once she gets here, her dreams are artificial at best.
All right. Norma Hotlink, if I could just ask you then, when it comes to to getting help now, your organization is expanding. You're getting, I understand, sort of set up and allowing people to sort of replicate what you do as well, to try and expand this help network. Is that correct?
Correct. And I have to say that I totally disagree with the recommendation of legalization. The Netherlands right now is the second leading country of receiving country of trafficked individuals, and they've had legalization for years. Germany, who's had legalization, the Greens Party in both the Netherlands and Germany are relooking at their policies, because Germany is the first leading country of trafficked individuals. The third is Spain, and they're they tolerate prostitution there, and they're a receiving country and a distribution country. So when you have systems that increase the demand, which is that feeds a $28 billion industry right now, when you look at sex slavery, why would you put in a system to increase the demand and then say that it's going to be okay? It's really proven, because the Greens Party that put these in place are really looking at and taking responsibility for the fact that they have contributed to increasing the demand and increasing trafficking.
Norma, I want to thank you very much, and we have run out of time, but I want to thank Norma and Natasha. Thank you for being with us, and Michael, thanks very much to you as well, sir.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. On tomorrow's show, we speak with the man who told us men are from Mars, women are from Venus, author and relationship counselor Dr. John Gray. Don't forget, send your emails to riz@aljazeera.net. We'll see you next time. Street Talk is next.